Hello, my name is Ceolito Rodriguez. All organizations must select the projects they decide to pursue from among numerous opportunities. In this presentation, I will discuss the different criteria that organizations use to select their projects, and I will discuss some best practices about project portfolio management. This is the agenda for this presentation. 6 criteria for a useful project selection and a screening model, checklists and simple scoring models to select projects, the analytical hierarchy process, the efficient frontier and risk return models, financial analysis and options analysis, challenges that arise in maintaining an optimal project portfolio, and finally, I will discuss 3 keys to successful project portfolio management. 6 criteria for a useful project selection and a screening model. No organization can pursue every opportunity that presents itself. Choices must be made, and to best ensure that they select the most viable projects, firms develop priority systems or guidelines, that is, the selection screening models, that will help them make the best choices within the usual constraints of time and money. That is, help them save time and money while maximizing the likelihood of success. A number of decision models are available to managers who are responsible for evaluating and selecting potential projects. There are 6 important issues that managers should consider when evaluating screening models. 1. Realism. An effective model must reflect organizational objectives. It must be reasonable in light of constraints on resources such as money and personnel, and must take into account both commercial risks and technical risks. 2. Capability. A model should be flexible enough to respond to changes and the conditions under which projects are carried out, and robust enough to accommodate new criteria and constraints. 3. Flexibility. The model should be easily modified if trial applications require changes. 4. Ease of use. A model must be simple enough to be used by people in all areas of the organization, and it should be timely in that it generates information rapidly and allows people to assimilate that information without any special training or skills. 6. Cost. The cost of gathering, storing, and arranging information in the form of useful reports or proposals should be relatively low in relation to the costs associated with implementing a project. That is, the cost of the models must be low enough to encourage their use rather than diminish their applicability. To this list, we add the final one, which is compatibility. The model must be broad enough that it can be applied to multiple projects and support general comparisons of project alternatives. Checklists and simple scoring models. Checklists require decision makers to develop a list of the criteria that are deemed important when considering project alternatives. For example, a firm may decide that all project alternatives must be acceptable on criteria such as return on investment or safety, cost of development, commercial opportunities, and stakeholder acceptability. Once the list of criteria is created, all project alternatives are evaluated against it and assigned a rating of high, medium, or low, depending on how well they satisfy each criterion in the checklist. Projects that rate highest across the relevant criteria are selected. Checklists are useful because they are simple and require the firm to make trade-off decisions among criteria to determine which issues are most important in selecting new projects. Among their disadvantages are the subjective nature of the rating process and the fact that they assume equal weighting for all criteria when some in fact may be much more important than others in making the final decision. Simple scoring models are similar to checklists, except that they employ criterion weights for each of the decision criteria. Hence, all project alternatives are first weighted by the importance score for the criterion, and then final scores are evaluated against one another. The advantage of this method is that it recognizes the fact that decision criteria may be weighted differently, leading to better choices among project alternatives. The disadvantages of the method arise from the difficulty in assigning meaningful values to scoring anchors, such as high equals 3, medium equals 2, low equal 1, etc. Thus, there is some uncertainty in the interpretation of the results of simple scoring models using weighted rankings. The usefulness of these models depends on the relevance of the selected criteria and the accuracy of the weight given to them. The analytical hierarchy process. The analytical hierarchy process, or AHP, is a four-step process that allows decision makers to understand the nature of project alternatives in making selection decisions. Using the AHP, decision makers 1. Structure the hierarchy of criteria to be used in the decision process. 2. Allocate weights to these criteria. 3. Assign numerical values to all evaluation dimensions. And 4. Use the scores to evaluate project alternatives. The AHP has been shown to create more accurate decision alternatives and lead to more informed choices, provided the organization decision makers develop accurate decision criteria and evaluate and weight them honestly. The efficient frontier and risk return models. Many projects are selected as a result of their perceived risk return trade-off potential. That is, all projects entail risk or uncertainty, so project organizations seek to balance higher risk with comparatively higher expectations of return when considering which projects to fund. The efficient frontier concept allows projects to be evaluated against each other by assessing the potential returns for each alternative compared to the risk the firm is expected to undertake in producing the project. The efficient frontier is the set of project portfolio options that offers either a maximum return for every given level of risk or the minimum risk for every level of return. Financial analysis and option analysis. Financial analysis using discounted cash flows and internal rates of return allow us to apply the concept of the time value of money to any decision that we have to make regarding the attractiveness of various project alternatives. The time value of money suggests that future streams of return from a project investment should at least be offset the initial investment in the project plus provide some required rate of return imposed by the company. Options analysis takes this process one step further and considers alternatives in which an investment is either made or foregone depending upon reasonable alternative investments the company can make in the future. Each of these financial models argues that the principal determinant of an attractive project investment must be the money that it promises to return. Clearly, therefore, a reasonably accurate estimate of future streams of revenue is required for financial models to create meaningful results. Challenges that arise in maintaining an optimal project portfolio. A number of challenges are associated with managing a portfolio of projects, including conservative technical communities that refuse to support new project initiatives, B, out of sync projects and portfolios in which the projects no longer align with overall strategic portfolio plans, C, unpromising projects that unbalance the portfolio, and D, scarce resources that make it impossible to support new projects. 3 keys to successful project portfolio management. There are 3 keys to success project portfolio management. First, firms need to create or make available a flexible structure and freedom of communication by reducing excessive bureaucracy and administrative oversight so that the portfolio management team maximum has flexibility in seeking out and investing in projects. Second, use of successful portfolio management strategies allows for low-cost environmental scanning, which launches a series of inexpensive probes into the future to develop and test market project alternatives. And finally, successful portfolio management requires a time-paced transition strategy based on a sense of the timing necessary to successfully transition from one product to the next.